Okay, this is part two of the Constitution, dealing with the Bill of Rights specifically. We know that the big argument of the Anti-Federalist once the Constitution was written was that it did not contain a Bill of Rights that were addressed specifically to the newly created national government. And so a deal was struck that some of the more important, larger populated states, that's what I mean by more important, would go ahead and ratify and approve the Constitution as long as the first thing the new Congress did was to add this Bill of Rights. And so there were several different amendments proposed. Only the first, well, what become the first 10 amendments to the Constitution are actually passed by the states. And this is one of those unique features of our system in that we have this written contract with government, and it's not only a written contract between the citizens and the national government, it's also a written contract between the states and the national government. And so it takes both of their consent to make a change. Otherwise, the federal government could get rid of the states or vice versa. And so when we agree to a change, we have to agree to a change. The first 10 I'll go through very quickly. The First Amendment protects the 5 basic freedoms: religion, speech, press, assembly, petition. Now, what does that mean? It depends on the situation. And you're going to get tired of hearing me say that, but that's the best answer that I can give you. Sometimes freedom of religion means that we don't say prayer in public school. But one thing it doesn't mean is that our tax money supports any particular church over another. And for the late 1700s, this was very unique. We know there was state-supported churches in England, Spain, all throughout Europe. The Second Amendment, lots of interpretations, and one that you hear a lot about in the news currently, and that's the right to bear arms. I want to stress the difference between the words state, or the word state, and the word people. You can interpret this a variety of different ways. Basically, my understanding of this and the way that I'm interpreting it, and that doesn't mean it's the right way. Like I said, you can do it however you want, but that, you know, we had just fought a revolution against a government that we deemed tyrannical. So the Second Amendment protects the rights of citizens to own guns for a variety of reasons, one of which is protection from the government. Now, I am not advocating that you go out and, do violence against the government. That's not what I'm saying. But for that time period, that was definitely one of those things that they wanted to protect. Think about those first shots at Lexington and Concord. Why did that skirmish even happen? Because the British troops were on their way to confiscate the colonists' guns. In modern times, does that mean you need an assault rifle? I don't know. It's interpreted differently depending on the times in which we live. Third, quartering of troops. We don't quarter troops in our homes. That should strike a bell with you. That goes directly back to the Quartering Act. Number 4, the Fourth Amendment, goes directly back to writs of assistance and the fact that the British did not need a search warrant to search your property or your person at any time. Police have to have probable cause or preferably in a warrant before they can search. And interpretation of this amendment has changed a lot over the years, and it's an ongoing process. Fifth Amendment protects a lot of different rights. Fifth and Sixth both deal to some degree of rights of people accused of crimes. And, we get bogged down in our current system and feel that justice is not done oftentimes, and that there are loopholes the, defendants get through. These are really not loopholes. They're flaws in laws that we have. And if you look at the Fifth, this is your right to life, liberty, and property. You don't have to testify against yourself. The state has the burden of proof, which means you're innocent until proven guilty. The government can take private property for public use as long as the owner is fairly compensated. There are a variety of rights protected in the Fifth Amendment. Sixth Amendment, protection in criminal trials. This is where you have the right to an attorney. That's changed drastically throughout our history. You have a right to know what you're being accused of. You have a right to confront witnesses who are accusing you. So it deals with rights of people accused in criminal cases. The Seventh Amendment deals with your right to have a jury trial in a civil lawsuit. The Eighth Amendment deals with excessive bail and punishments. No excessive bails or fines for various crimes, and no unusual punishments. Now, what does that mean? That's a good question. It's been interpreted many times. Some people think the death penalty is cruel and unusual and therefore unconstitutional. Some do not. The 9th and 10th, you don't really probably know much about, but they're really important. The 9th Amendment says we can't list every right people are going to need in this country for the next 300 years. So there are other rights that exist, and we know that they're there, but we are incapable of listing them all. That doesn't mean they don't still deserve protection. So things like the right to privacy, the right to vote. If you'll notice, voting is not mentioned anywhere in the Constitution. So that is something that the states are going to be able to do. But things like that are not specifically mentioned, the courts have still interpreted that we have the right to some of those things. Lastly, the 10th Amendment deals with the power of the states, and this is the amendment that gives the states their claim to be able to do whatever they want unless the Constitution gives it to the federal government or strictly forbids it to the states. For example, regulate slavery. Is not mentioned anywhere in the Constitution, therefore it's not given to Congress and the national government. It's a power that belongs to the states. So the 10th Amendment is the basis of states' rights, and we'll be talking a lot about that this first semester. So the first 10, of course, together, all approved and added to the Constitution almost immediately once the new government is selected. We will be discussing these off and on throughout the rest of the course, but just a brief overview, and I'm on page A44 and A45 in the appendix of your textbook. You can, of course, look these up online. There's a gazillion sites that have copies of the Constitution. So it might be something that you might want to save to your desktop so that you have access to it throughout the year, because we will be referring back and forth. All right, see y'all tomorrow. Bye. Have a good evening.